Welcome to Eye on America. I'm Michelle Miller. Today we'll travel from small towns to big cities to shine a spotlight on Americans lending a helping hand to those in need. In Missouri, an inspiring story of a former inmate who turned his life around with the help of an unlikely advocate. And we meet up with comedian Sebastian Maniscalco, who's sharing advice with first-time parents. But first, we travel to one of the nation's most historic and now endangered places, Jamestown, Virginia. Chris Van Cleve reports on that community's effort to save it from rising sea levels.
More than 400 years after the first European settlers arrived, Jamestown, Virginia is struggling to survive, not the passage of time, but the ravage of climate change.
We are concerned that if we don't take action, Jamestown will be lost.
What would America lose if this site is allowed to sink?
I think part of its soul.
Elizabeth Kostelny runs the nonprofit overseeing the colony's original 22 acres along the James River and is now racing to save it from rising water.
It tells a national story about our persistence, our democracy, and the beginnings of our race relations.
The Jamestown colony marked the start of representative government in the New World. It's where Pocahontas married John Rolfe, and it remains the site of hidden history waiting to be unearthed.
How often do you find things of significance here?
Every single day.
But the river is rising, up over 18 inches in the last century. David Gibbons is the director of archaeology.
Jamestown holds supreme in terms of world heritage. This place is, in our minds, where you draw a line in the sand about sea level rise, climate change, and cultural heritage.
That line in the sand started with a 6-month project to shore up the seawall along the riverbank that was built in 1904, adding 96,000 tons of granite to help deflect the force of ever-strengthening storms.
But the biggest threat to Jamestown actually isn't the rising river. It's this swamp that's literally devouring history as it grows.
You increasingly have water from both sides and below.
We have it from both sides, below, above. We're getting attacked from all sides.
Leading Jamestown's fight against climate change is Michael Lavin.
We're going to have to raise buildings, raise roads, do salvage archaeology, put in berms, pump systems to truly save Jamestown.
But saving it will likely require tens of millions of dollars over the next 5 years to keep this American treasure from being washed away.
From rising waters to something called the Dirt Therapy Project, a Texas-based nonprofit is helping veterans heal from the scars of war through mountain biking. Omar Villafranca got a chance to experience their unique mix of camaraderie and adrenaline.
Army veteran Travis Strong is no stranger to heart-pumping action, from skydiving to skiing to surfing. Strong says he's always been a bit of a daredevil, but after surviving a life-threatening battlefield injury, he now just wants to show himself and others that anything is possible.
November 27th of 2006 was when it actually happened. We were just doing a night mission. It kind of started off really weird, quiet.
Strong was on his second deployment to Baghdad when a roadside bomb tore through the armored vehicle he was riding in.
It took my right leg off instantly, and my left leg was kind of really mangled. But I didn't feel any pain. I didn't know I was even hit at that point in time. And then everything just started to go black. I can feel myself just like draining out, like my life's just draining, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna die, like I'm dead.
Doctors at a field hospital were able to save his life, but not his legs.
At that time, I was just trying to think of what my life would be like without legs, and just trying to figure out what can and what I do, you know?
The cans now far outweigh the cannots. Strong even hopes to summit Tanzania's Mount Kilimanjaro next year. But today, he faces a slightly smaller peak, hitting the trails on this adaptive suspension trike.
So this is gonna be your first time coming down the mountain?
Yes.
What are you expecting?
Just have fun. Go down.
The trike was loaned to him by a nonprofit started by another combat veteran, Jonathan Hagerman.
I grew up in a military family. My dad was Air Force, and so it was always kind of something that I knew I wanted to do.
After 4 years of service, including a deployment to Afghanistan, Hagerman returned to civilian life and went back to school.
What were you missing after you left the Marines?
Man, that's a tough question. You build these bonds and these friendships that you can't make anywhere else. For 4 years, I had been on active duty. Every single day I woke up, I knew what I was going to wear. I knew where I was allowed to go. And then you separate, and it's like, oh, go do whatever you want. What is it that I want to do?
After a few months of seeing the stress-relieving benefits of this outlet on wheels, Hagerman started the Dirt Therapy Project. The mission? Helping other veterans heal and connect through biking. The organization's first annual Veterans Day event brought 150 veterans together in Texas, including Strong and his girlfriend Brittany, a 2-year Army vet and competitive biker who couldn't wait to hit the downhill dirt.
What are you expecting on this mountain?
0 to 100 with him. He'll probably do stuff where we're all going to go, what the heck just happened? That's him.
So the brakes are not going to get any use with him?
No, probably not.
When you're racing or when you're going down a hill, does it give you something that you can't get anywhere else?
A sense of freedom, because pretty much you're equal to everybody up there on the mountain. You can pretty much do anything that they can do.
That was so sick.
This helps me as much as it helps anybody who comes out to ride with us. I'm becoming a better version of myself alongside other folks who are doing the same thing.
I like to lead by example and show what's possible instead of telling other people, hey, do this, when you're doing it too, and they can look at you and go, well, I've got no excuse now.
Ahead, a powerful story of transformation. A Missouri man who turned his life around in prison and is now free. We now turn to a story of second chances. Missouri prisoner Bobby Bostic was serving a 241-year sentence for a series of robberies he committed when he was only 16. 48 Hours correspondent Aaron Moriarty sat down with him and the judge who helped advocate for his release.
43-year-old Bobby Bostic was making more than a fashion statement when he walked away from a Missouri prison last week in a brand new suit.
The new me, the suits represent the new me, and it's a business suit, and I'm gonna go on with the new business of life. So that's what the suit represents.
Bostic's first hug, Evelyn Baker.
God, I'm so happy. Happy too.
The now retired judge who sent Bostic to prison, but spent the last 4 years fighting to get him out.
You were emotional when he walked out towards you.
Yep. He made me cry.
Wasn't trying to.
This day once seemed inconceivable. Bostic was incarcerated in 1995 at age 16 after he and a friend committed a series of armed robberies in St. Louis. One victim was grazed by a bullet.
Did you intend to hurt him? To kill him?
No, if I had intended to hurt or kill him, I'd have kept shooting.
Convinced Bostic was a lost cause, Judge Baker showed no mercy. After he was convicted on 17 counts, the judge ordered his sentences to run consecutively for a total of 241 years. We visited Bostic in prison again 2 weeks before his release.
Were you angry with her?
No, it motivated me to say, one day if I ever do get out, I will see her and she'll realize the mistake she made when she see the person I became.
That didn't seem very likely. Bostic wouldn't be eligible for parole until he was 112 years old. Many people would have just given up, but Bostic found drive even when he had nowhere to go.
Once you make so many mistakes, you get tired and you want to do something different. So I started reading. That's how I found myself, in books. And that's the most peace I ever get in the world. It's a natural high, basically.
Bostic obtained an associate's degree and is working now on his bachelor's in business. He wrote poetry and prose, 15 books in all, including a biography of his mother. His stunning turnaround convinced Judge Baker she made a mistake.
241 years is insanity. When I think back on it, and I'll say right now, it's insanity. He was a kid. He was a little boy.
But you're the one who sentenced him, Judge.
Yes, as he evolved, I have evolved.
I mean, is it fair to say that the case of Bobby Bostic has haunted you?
That would be a very true statement.
Judge Baker began advocating for Bostic. In the summer of 2021, the Missouri legislature passed the Bobby Bostic law, which allowed him and other inmates incarcerated as juveniles to apply for parole. How unusual is that for the trial judge who sentenced an inmate to then appear at the parole hearing asking for his release?
I don't know if it ever happened before, but it was something I wanted to do.
Why?
Because it was time for Bobby to come home and be with his family. He wasn't the kid I sentenced.
And late last year, the parole board gave Bostic a date when he could finally go home.
And then when I see my name on the paper this morning, it said released, Bobby Bostic released. I'm like, it's official.
So you do have a very strange, unique bond.
Yes.
You put him in prison and you helped him get out.
The Bobby Bostic I put in prison. It's not the Bobby Bostic who got out. Bobby did what many people can't do. He created himself. He took the good, the bad, and the ugly, and he turned it into something that's quite beautiful.
You feel good about today?
I'm ecstatic. This is better than Christmas, Easter, 4th of July, Thanksgiving rolled in one.
Oh my God! His family thought so too. There'll be some people who won't think you and other men who've been convicted as juveniles deserve a second chance. What do you say to them?
Well, some people, they got a right to feel that way, basically, right? It's up to us, the juveniles who get out and get the second chance to do something different, to prove to those people, like, I'm just like you.
We now head to a classified federal facility in Virginia, housing millions of top secret files with the help of a team of robots. Scott McFarlane explains.
Near the mountains in rural Winchester, Virginia, more than 60 miles from the nation's capital, inside a classified federal facility, the FBI has deployed a team of robots. An agency that for more than a century has uncovered crime and secrets has built a home for all the FBI files detailing those crimes and secrets.
It's just a little bit smaller than 2 football fields.
Full of records.
Yes.
It's a lot.
Yep, 7.4 million.
And to move the unparalleled piles of paper, they've built and set in motion a team of more than 100 robotic helpers.
It sounds like the world's biggest library.
In some instances it is. We have a lot of information here.
A major investment and upgrade for the Bureau, which previously kept its piles of files in storage rooms and locked boxes at its dozens of field offices nationwide. They now have one clearinghouse with hard copies of the files from thousands of cases, from probes of Al Capone to the Olympic Park bombing, 9/11 to the assassination of JFK.
These case files have been collected from every community in America, every FBI field office across the U.S. There are a lot of them. They fill 360,000 of these gray crates.
And as more cases close, the files come here.
We designed this to work just as simple as self-checkout at the grocery store.
For barcoding, scanning, and deposit.
Once the organization sees the value of having our records readily accessible, retrievable, and digitized, you get them quicker.
The agency is hoping this speeds the work of agents who are investigating new crimes. Every old case file stored here can be retrieved and digitized and sent to agents across America in 10 minutes if needed.
We freed up warehouses, we freed out square footage, and we have people doing the most important work in the field that they need to be doing, which is working those cases.
A new modern era for an agency still synonymous with J. Edgar Hoover, as the G-men are now getting the help of robots.
Coming up, a CBS News investigation into limited childcare options for some military families. This is Eye on America. Welcome back. A recent CBS News report revealed some Army Special Forces in Florida were driving up to 3 hours round trip every day to take their children to childcare. Senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge sat down with the U.S. Army Secretary seeking a solution.
Why is child care so important to the Army? Well, it's really a readiness issue.
And now Christine Wormuth, the first woman to serve as Secretary of the Army, is taking it on.
As a working mother, is childcare personal?
It's absolutely personal. I mean, I have personally had that experience of racing to drop my kids off at the daycare center and get into work on time, or racing to get out to pick them up and sort of being the last parent to pick them up and getting the stink eye from the workers.
3 hours in the car every day just to get to childcare.
Yes.
Chelsea, a former Special Forces soldier who asked us not to use her last name for security reasons, showed me part of the drive that drove her out of the Army.
It just wasn't a sustainable solution.
She and her husband, still in Special Forces, juggled up to 3 hours of commuting each day for childcare, driving from their home in Crestview, Florida, past their training base at Camp Simons, 20 miles away, to where the Army offered childcare spots, another 20 miles to the south on Eglin Air Force Base.
It's unaffordable for military families to live closer to Eglin.
Was it impactful to hear from soldiers like Chelsea who had to quit the service?
Absolutely. I mean, I never want to lose a great soldier and family because they can't get childcare. Working closely with the Air Force,
Wormuth announced plans for a new childcare center on the Army Special Forces base.
We need to have our parents have childcare that's not too far away. So having it be on Camp Simons, I think really is the optimal solution.
The Army plan goes beyond the Florida base with greater stipends for daycare and at least 20 new child care facilities in the next decade. But with over 11,000 kids in military families waiting for child care, the Pentagon still faces the same staffing shortages as civilian daycares.
Part of what we're doing is trying to make sure we're recruiting the best staff. We're in a war for talent, frankly, so we're trying to raise our pay.
And with the war in Ukraine and China flexing its military power, Wormuth says childcare is central to the mission.
We don't want a situation where someone is distracted from, the main thing, which is doing their job, because they're worried about their kids. Or we don't want to lose a good soldier because they weren't able to make the childcare work.
CBS News has confirmed the Army and the Air Force have signed an official memo of agreement that provides for some short-term help. But the plan is to build a new child development center at the Special Forces base.
We close our show finding laughter in moments of exhaustion, especially for parents. Here's superstar comedian Sebastian Maniscalco and his kids' pediatrician, Dr. Scott Cohen, with advice all first-time parents could use: how to get their babies to sleep.
Today, we are joined by Meg and Daniel, and they have a child, Abigail, who does not nap or sleep well. And we're going to take a little peek into what's going on in their house. Let's take a look.
Love you. It's magical. It's amazing. Nothing compares to the joy of actually becoming a mom, especially, my little Abigail's mama.
Loving, caring, sometimes tiring, not sometimes, all the time tiring.
Have a good night.
From the first cry that happened, you're waking up like, oh my God, is she okay? Quickly get out of bed and make sure, she's still breathing. It's like a thunderstorm that you didn't expect.
The sleep deprivation, especially in the middle of the night, when you just know that you're gonna wake up in a little bit, it's terrifying. I'm always searching online. There's a lot of information out there and everyone claiming that this is right. It was very overwhelming.
The daily changes just kind of freaks you out.
When someone asks, what time does she nap? I'm like, this is a tough one. The naps are a disaster right now.
We all would be happy if she slept more.
So let's talk about some sleep training. Did you sleep train your kids?
We did. When I heard about sleep training, I'm like, who needs that? You just put the kid to bed and you go to bed. And I would be real maternal. Like, I would be sleeping and I hear, and I would be, I was up and I was looking at that monitor like game tape.
Honestly, sleep training is not for everybody because as a parent, it is heartbreaking because the idea of sleep training is getting your child after 4 months of age to sleep a minimum of 10 hours. Can you imagine sleeping 10 hours again, right? Minimum of 10 hours without your child feeding or picking them up. What do you do for your bedtime routine?
She first starts playing with her books and toys, and then she just nurses to sleep right now.
Okay.
But sometimes when she's just a little more awake, I love you, she would scream her lungs out for like half an hour straight, and she would just not go to sleep unless I go and comfort her.
So when this happens, you got it set up where you go into the room and then you go into the room. How is it the responsibilities divvied up?
Me.
Because you thought she was sleeping through the night, right?
This guy's like my dad. You do it.
Okay.
I'm a heavy sleeper, so sometimes she'll be like, "Did you hear her?" I'm like, "What? She woke up?"
No, he wakes up in the morning. He's like, "Oh, thank God, tonight she didn't wake up." I'm like, all the time.
Just pretend you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You seem like the softie. Are you the softie?
I'm the softie.
You gave in.
Listen, I've gotten into the crib a few times. Yeah, I'm more the kind of the emotional one in the relationship and very sensitive to the child, where my wife is no fear, let them do whatever. I'm always like, oh, I think they're on the playground. I'm like, oh, they're gonna fall. So you cry when Abigail cries.
Yes.
And it's heartbreaking, right? And this guy is out cold.
You want me to be honest?
You have a child. Are you aware of it?
I comfort her. I don't cry, but deep down somewhere in that heart of mine, I get a little emotional. At least when Abigail cries.
And just by talking to you, I bet in this family, Daniel's taking naps.
In the crib with the baby?
No, just at 2 o'clock, he goes down. She puts them both down.
Guilty.
For more stories like these and live coverage of breaking news 24/7, stream us right here on CBS News. I'm Michelle Miller. Thank you for watching Eye on America.